podcast. I know you're probably adjusting your computer monitor or your phone, your mobile device. I'm Chris Ryder. I've been on a couple of times, although it's been a little while. And we're going to change things up just a little bit this week. I'm actually turning the tables on Lee Corning, your typical host.
Right.
And I'm going to interview him. I know Lee pretty well. Some of you guys know him from, asking other, great business leaders good questions about, how they've come up. But Lee's got a pretty interesting history as well. I thought it would be great for you all to learn a little bit more about Lee, because some of it is just fascinating, and then there's a lot of, I think, like great motivation and know-how that you should be passing along as well. Stop keeping all this to yourself.
Well, fair enough. I appreciate you being willing to turn the camera on me.
Yeah. And plus, last time I went back and watched, and there wasn't enough camera time on me.
Yeah.
So I figured that if I was leading the discussion, I can just dominate more of the camera time.
Well, that would be.
And also, part of it is I realize that I can do this, and even when you're on,
you can still get FaceTime.
I can still, be in the shot. So I'm figuring out all the dynamics of the new studio.
Adam, did you see how he did that? Did you get that shot?
Absolutely. I got him right halfway into the turn. But yeah.
I'm working on a more subtle approach too, which is just interesting.
Just
Oh.
So anyway, you might see some of those throughout the hour. So I'm interested in talking about that. Anything else that you wanted to talk about today?
No, I think it's always awesome when you're on the podcast because we started this together.
Yeah.
In a conference room probably 30 episodes ago. And it has morphed and mutated into the beast it is today.
Yes. What episode will this be? Do you know?
It's hard to say. We queue them up. So like when we do the podcast, obviously this is taped and we try to get them out as soon as possible after the taping. Because this is a very amateur setup, so like I've got to go try to make sure that we're getting produced properly and our sound is decent enough and we're putting out quality content.
Right.
But generally they take 3 or 4 days to get that done properly too. And then I'd say, so this one will come out this Thursday just because of how the queuing process will go. And so yeah.
Great.
Thursday.
Well, we did 10 originally, and you've probably done at least 10. Since
14.
Okay, yeah,
15
all right.
maybe.
So we're in the quarter century area. Before we kind of get started on you, I thought this was funny, and you just jogged my memory when you said this is kind of an amateurish production.
Right.
I noticed here on the desk that you've got 2 boxes of quarters.
Yes.
And this is $500 of quarters, if you can't see. It's super heavy. And this actually says Adventures Outback Unconsumed Podcast Advertising Payment.
Yes. So
They paid you in quarters.
my buddy Tim Carter was the first one on the podcast, and he runs a ton of businesses.
Yeah, I remember seeing that guy.
And I was like, hey, we need sponsors for the podcast to buy all this stuff you see around here. And so one day in the middle of the day, he comes in here, unannounced. I'm on the phone. He comes in. He's like holding these 2 boxes of quarters, and he's like, here's your payment for the podcast for the first 25 episodes. And I was like,
It's great.
fair enough, here they are. So I didn't want to cash them because they're like my conversation piece now.
You can't. It's sort of like the dollar bill. You frame your first dollar for the business.
So I got a check from one of the other advertisers, and I had it sitting up by my clocks over here. And my wife saw that it was there, and she's like, I'm not letting $500 just sit around. So she went and cashed it.
Yeah.
And so I had to do a little accounting for my podcast money.
But she hasn't walked off with the boxes of quarters.
No, they're too heavy. They're safe.
Yeah, got it.
But I had to come out of pocket $1,000 so that I can let those continue to exist.
So it's a $1,000 conversation piece.
For now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to preview a little bit about what I want to talk to you about, just in case you're looking for, you want to skip ahead to the parts that interest you.
They were all interesting in the time.
So I've known you in your tech sales career,
right?
But you've also got, prior to that, some bond trading experience, right? Did I get that?
Oh yeah,
somewhat right. And then you've also got obviously this podcast that you created, And then you've also created and started several companies, either on your own or with friends.
Yes.
Tech companies that you've created and sold, some that you're still in process of creating. So,
and we have a new one coming out in August, and we'll get to that.
Yeah, so I definitely want to hear about that one too. So, let's start. What was your very first job? Like, not on LinkedIn, what's your first job you had?
My very first job, I was mopping the floors at Lifetime Fitness in Naperville, which is like southwestern Chicago suburb.
Mopping the floors. So would you go in at like typical business hours or like?
So this frame of life, I was like 14 years old, and so I got a job in mopping the floors at the Lifetime Fitness because I needed a pass to the gym, and so basically they were paying you minimum wage, but you got this like Alexa's chiming in. You get this like $150 membership to the best gym in the area, and there were great basketball games in there, and so I wanted to play, and so if I mopped the floor and I cleaned some toilets and washed the towels, it worked out, and I got a little pocket change.
And it's good, manual labor, job as a kid to start with too. But you were pretty young. I mean, 14. So I don't know what the labor laws are in Chicago, but or in Illinois. But that seems young to have a real W-9 type of job.
Right, and I can't remember the specifics on it, but I couldn't drive myself to the job.
Yeah.
So my parents would drop me off, and they were like, "All right, so you'll work for your 6-hour shift, and then we'll pick you up at 8 hours because then you'll want to play basketball and stuff." So that was pretty cool. But I don't remember the labor laws. There was some imbroglio around whether you could do that or not.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I was 14. What do you want?
My first job, I know this is not necessarily about me, but
it's all about you.
My first job was 14 as well, was at Baskin Robbins.
Oh, yeah.
And I know for a fact that I wasn't eligible to work yet, but this was a shady franchise that owned it. And they realized that if they had a bunch of applications, this place just opened. And they picked me because I was 14 and they could pay me less than minimum wage because who am I going to complain to? So I would ride my bike there across the street. But, you got some good exercise as your like fringe benefit. I ate a ton of ice cream. So I made up for that minimum wage gap in
ice cream.
In mint chocolate chip. So we all, benefited.
So the other thing that I did right around that frame was I was a night shift security guard.
Whoa.
Yeah, so you ever heard of Boise Paper?
Yes.
It was called Cascade at the time.
Yeah.
And then it became Office Max.
Yeah.
And at like 16 or 17, I was sitting in the receiving dock's security office and like just watching the trucks come in at night, and then they would all bring their little form up to me and be like, "Here's my form."
Yeah.
And they would. This is kind of comical. Is that these truckers would come in from wherever they were coming from in the country, and they would like offer to sell me things occasionally, like
off the truck.
Well, no, not off the truck that I know of.
Yeah.
The guys would come in and they'd be like, "Hey, I would be the first person they've seen after like a long road trip."
Yeah.
And this one guy came in and he's like, "This is a Sony laptop. It's worth $400. Are you interested?"
Oh my gosh.
I'm 16 and no.
Yeah, that's odd.
Yeah, so lots of like weird things. Or be like, "You want to buy this watch?" That happened a bunch of times. Very odd. It's totally.
Did you wear like one of those dark blue uniforms with like a belt with a flashlight and a radio?
No. So you had to wear like black pants, and then they'd give you like this fake cop shirt.
Yeah, it had like a sewn-in badge that just says security on it.
It said Initial Security was the name of the company.
Yeah.
Also out of Naperville, Illinois.
Yeah.
So yeah, those were my first 2 jobs.
Did you have any sort of superiority complex like a police officer might by wearing that?
No, I had major inferiority complex because it was like you're in a place with a bunch of adults. You're obviously 10.
Yeah.
And you're walking around pretending to be an authority figure.
Yeah.
Complete shill.
Yeah. With these truckers that have just pulled a 2-day haul.
Yes, trying to sell things to afford some addiction.
Selling you VCRs that they took off of some other truck.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. I had never heard
Those are my first 2 un-LinkedIn jobs.
Yeah. And did those take you through through high school? Were you?
Yeah, I worked at Lifetime Fitness through high school, and then when I came back for like winter break and stuff, I do the same thing.
So now, before we get into college,
Yeah.
what was the career dynamic in your household that you saw every day?
Yeah.
I know your brother is a very successful person as well. I don't know anything about your parents.
Yeah, so my parents are both from Wisconsin,
Mhm.
and so my dad was working as a teacher and was going to be a coach and that kind of thing, and then found out that you can't make a lot of money doing that.
Yeah, I found
Which
that.
is the story with a lot of those things, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so I've got all these kids and I want to do something. So he got into the financial world, doing all kinds of fixed rate products and these types of things. So like the financial world came into play for the first time there.
Mhm.
And then my mom's I call her domestic engineer, which is a
Yeah.
stay-at-home mom. And then my brother has worked started out at Goldman and has gone to some other funds, and they're like a little bit secretive around. So I'll try to leave his stats off the internet, but yeah.
So, did your dad pretty much stay at one gig forever?
He's been at the same shop since 86.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's still working?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Come on. He's not interested in taking a break?
I think he might be interested in taking a break, but he's one of those people that is not genetically available for him.
So he's got to be going.
Yes.
We talked about this last time I was here about,
Yeah.
the folks who want to retire and the folks who don't. And, whatever keeps you alive and happy, fine. If it's work, if it's golf, if it's,
Yeah, he'll go forever. There's
right.
no two ways about it.
Well, good for him. So you're, from an early age, the financial aspect, that job was pretty prevalent in your home. So was that...
Yeah, that's just what I figured I'd do.
Yeah.
My brother is 4 years older than me, so when I went to college, he was entering it, and I just figured that's the track.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you do things that you've seen done.
Sure.
So it's like, did I think that I would go be Elon Musk? No, because I'd never seen anyone do that.
Right.
So it's like, that's not even in the realm of possibilities.
And that's kind of why I was curious about what you saw, like what your
Yeah.
dad did. I knew a little bit about your brother. So you go to college. I know you played basketball. Did you work during college as well?
You're technically not allowed to have a job.
If you're on scholarship.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So then you get out, and first job is
So I was
Chicago?
a bond trader.
Bond
Yeah.
trader.
So I'm trying to think if we're leaving anything super interesting out. Yeah, that's good. So I was playing basketball at Liberty University in Virginia, and I was like one of the last guys on the bench.
Yeah.
It's like this was no athletic glory story.
Right.
So I started to see like this. I knew in junior high that I wasn't going to the league because I was going to be like somewhere around the height I am now.
Yeah.
My parents weren't that tall, and I just was like, this isn't
Right.
going to work. But I'll take this as far as I can take it.
Yeah.
I had set a goal that I wanted to play basketball at Division I level very early on. If I was recalibrating all of that, I would never have gone that track. It's a lot of effort for not a lot of reward. But it's easy to say that it's worth less than it is.
There's probably some intangible things about it that you derived that
I
you're
don't give it
discounting,
credit. Yeah.
right? Like setting a goal, a really freaking tough goal, by the way. Like,
Yeah.
not easy to play D1 sports, even being the second to last guy on the bench. Like there's something to that.
Yeah. Well, and so in my first interview, I was like, I've set one life goal so far.
Yeah.
Crushed it.
I'm 1 for 1.
Yeah. It's like,
How'd you like to be number 2?
exactly.
Yeah.
So that was essentially the pitch. And so the guy had to be like just laughing, but
Sure.
he was like, well, fair enough.
Yeah.
So I knew that I wasn't going to be able to take basketball any further than it was going.
Right.
So in my third year of college, I was like, I'm totally tired of this. And now I think like I should have just stayed in college forever because that would have been fun.
And had you been studying, like what was your major? What were you studying in college?
I had finance and marketing.
Okay.
So marketing because it was attainable.
Right.
I remember college, like marketing was like, I can definitely do this.
Yeah.
And then finance, I just got whatever I could from that. So you get like this kind of dual major setup where you can go market that around and get a gig. So I went into this in my third year of college. It was like the basketball thing is done, and it has been done. I'm just kind of riding the coattails out on this. And I decided that I was going to need to enter the workforce earlier. So I took 30 credit hours my last semester.
Wow.
So this is like right at the advent of online school.
Mm-hmm.
So I would go and do 15 credit hours on campus, and then I would go home and take the rest of the credit hours online. So it was like probably 6 months of a pretty hard go, but then I finished a year early because when you're in sports, they make you go to summer school and stuff too. So I was getting it done as far as like credits.
Yeah.
And so then I came back to Chicago, and there was a trading firm in where I was at called Asymmetric Bond Markets.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew nothing about anything. Let's be fully clear on how this went. And so I'm over there, and they're like, okay, so like we know your dad. We know some guys that know your dad. Like, we don't need to make any calls. Like, your brother's smart.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not an idiot.
Yeah.
So that's how I got my first job.
Yeah.
And so there was like some other pieces around this. Like, I had tried to go work for the big banks. I tried to go to JP, tried to go to Goldman. Solomon Brothers was still around. And this was like 2007. So in my first year, I walk into this. I spent 3 months training. Like, I kind of got it. This is an overnight market. So this is the futures close at 3 o'clock, and then the markets settle for 15 minutes, and then they reopen at 5.
So your day was overnight.
Yes. So
Wow.
I was working night shift at the CME, and so we would do like, this was right when open outcry trading was kind of ending.
I don't know what that is.
So that's like when you turn on the TV in the 90s, and there's like guys throwing paper in there, and they're like this, they're doing they're telling you with their hands and mouths like what they want to buy and sell.
It's the great scene from Ferris Bueller's Day Off as well.
Okay.
Yeah, when Cameron's up in the thing and he's doing
Yes. Yeah. So that was wild. So like I was like right at the beginning of when computer trading was taking over, and so like in 07, 08, this had been brewing for a while. That algorithmic trading was coming into play, and it was way faster than what any guy in the pit could do with his hands and say buy, sell. And so all of a sudden, like in 1980, if fair value on a bond was $1, let's say, then if the price was at $1.20, like it would slowly, incrementally go down, and people would have to trade it by voice and by hand to make it go back to fair value, and that's how that was done. But then when I was there, it would just go 120, and then it would overcorrect and be 80 cents.
Wow.
And so it was just like you could get your hands stuck in the machine and get them chopped off real quick.
It's an interesting time to be in your very first job.
Yes.
Because that shift is taking place, and then you also have this, you didn't know it at the time, or maybe you did, but this looming financial crisis coming in your first year and a half as well, right?
Right, exactly. So I'm sitting there, all these guys around me have been here for 10 years, and they're all filthy rich, and they drive these ridiculous cars.
So these are young kids. I mean, they're maybe 30, 35.
So there's like a rookie class every year, and then 5 of them get fired, and then a couple make it on, because the guys blow up every day.
Yeah.
So like blowing up is a term where you do something stupid, you can't admit that you did something stupid, and so the market just punishes you until you'll never trade again. And all this happens in about 10 seconds.
And then you're out. You're like, I can't do this.
If you blow out, you'll never work for another trading firm ever again.
Yeah.
So I was sitting there in this like, just what's the term when trigger shy for a long time, because I was like, if you mess this up, like I saw him like blow out. I saw a guy over there. I seen guys take baseball bats to their monitors.
Yeah.
Which is this is something worth stopping the narrative for. Is one time I was on a trading floor, and a guy is like, to this day I have baseball bats around my desk for my desk prop, but he just like would swing this thing around all day, and like this was his like, because we don't have a boss. Like this is like a complete open market. No one is telling you what to do at all. And so he would just sit there, and you work for a firm, and then the firm just like provides you your desk. You pay for your feeds and all the data that you get. And he would like sit at his desk and just like scream all day. Like I think his name was Jake, if I'm remembering this properly. Jake,
I hope he's watching.
God bless Jake. And so, there he is. So Jake, like, has this baseball bat at his desk, and, like, one day I just hear him, like, swear and then turn around, pick up his bat, and just, like, smash one of his monitors, like, just like you'd see here.
Oh, my God.
Monitor blows to pieces. And then the IT guy, this was, like, my first, like, couple weeks, rolls out there, just goes in the closet, rolls out a little cart with a new monitor, screws it off, and then screws a new one back on. Jake walks out like nothing happened.
Oh my God!
Like he's unplugging it, plugging it back in.
He just says one a month kind of thing. He's just gonna bash one a month.
There's a closet full of monitors.
Yeah.
For traders to break.
Ready for Jake.
Yes.
Yeah.
Feels.
And like I've seen guys punch monitors. They're pretty resilient. Like
Yeah.
you think they're fragile, they can take a pretty good shot.
Wow. So that's just a really crazy first
It was
job.
an insane first job. So I'll tell you this. When guys go to law school, they come back and they say, it reframed how I think.
Yeah.
Right? So they're like, now I think pragmatically. I think like in terms of the law, what allows you to do what, and then there's steps to it. Trading in that time of life served as essentially an MBA in risk management. And so I'm in sales now, and there's some funniness to that, how I got into that. But every time I'm working on anything, I'm like, what can go wrong here?
Yeah.
Because it's always framed against, I've seen it go wrong a ton of times in really catastrophic ways.
What's that blow up point in this deal or in
exactly.
this? Yeah.
So if you think of everything that way, you can kind of protect the downside pretty well.
I think we just got our first nugget.
Jot that down.
Blow up.
Yeah, so in that time, obviously 07, 08, and I was talking about this on the last podcast, is like I was in the pit the night that Bear Stearns got sold to Bank of America for $2. Remember this?
Yeah.
Everything was just like, I thought someone had died. Not just someone, like a ton of people had died.
I mean, was it just like a mass exodus of people like saying, I gotta get out of here?
Well, when that comes back, so like a couple of weeks before, Bear Stearns had been trading for like $68 a share. So like everyone's going on TV saying like liquidity's perfect. I hear people saying these doomsday stories. They've been saying doomsday stories for a long, long time, and this is just another boy crying wolf. And then in the middle of the night, it's like $2. That revalues
$2
everything.
Yeah.
And so no one knows what to do. Like, what do you think a bond is worth if one of the strongest financial institutions in America is worth $2 a share?
Yeah.
And it just got sold to their biggest competitor.
Yeah.
Why is it $2?
Right.
Is it toxic assets? Is this going to make Bank of America worth $2? Or is this going to make Bank of America worth $3? Is it that bad? Who knows? No reporting. Just like if you pull up the old CNBC footage from that day, they're like,
we don't know what to tell you.
and I was sitting there being like, I think we're all going to die pretty much. And so, yeah, that was super wild. And I saw tons of guys blow out like immediately. But anytime, and so this is something I think people can learn about trading is anytime there's a winner in a trade, there is also a loser. So it's a zero-sum game. So like if I buy something from you and the price goes up, I win, you lose.
Right.
Every time.
Yeah.
And so where the market dynamics come into play is that if you're trying to do something, you're trying to execute a trade where it's you want to sell something to me to hedge out some other opportunity you're working on, then we have a mutually beneficial trade.
Yeah.
And I don't need to get too into the weeds on that unless you're interested. But it's like in this environment, it's like you're looking at the guy who you're killing, essentially. Or you're ending his career, at least.
Jeez.
It's pretty wild.
So how many different firms or companies did you work at doing that kind of gig?
2.
Okay.
So if you're familiar with the yield curve, it looks like a check mark. And it's essentially what a yield on a bond should be.
Okay.
And so the yield curve, a healthy yield curve looks like a Nike swoosh, essentially. And then when the market went to garbage, then the yield curve essentially looked like a straight line up and down because there's no liquidity. And then you can't trade bonds on any type of rationale if that's the case, or at least I couldn't. So I left and I went to start trading index equity futures, which are like Dow, S&P, NASDAQ, Russell 2K, which is now the Russell 400, I believe, and then mid cap 500, which is it's like the minor league of the S&P.
Yeah.
So I did that, and that went great for like 5 years.
That's a pretty long time in that kind of gig, right? Were you in the same role that entire time?
Yeah, so you're just a trader.
Yeah.
So like, and I always when I'm talking about this, it's a whole different world in terms of like who's in charge, because the guys that are the most in charge are accountable to nobody, and no one's accountable to them.
Yeah.
So like the young guys are technically the managers, and like they have to collect the reports and then take them back to the partners and like say what's what and manage servers and these kinds of things. So like it's a low man on the totem pole to have to like go refresh all the charts and thing every day. Yeah.
I think it's one of the things that I think is, you've told me this story before, but when you was your next job after that HP, was that okay?
No, it was IBM.
IBM. That's I knew it was one of those big ones. And I love the story about when you like went for your interview or they showed you an offer.
Yeah.
Tell that story.
So,
or I guess before that, what led you to say, okay, I'm going to completely change gears in my career? Because that's a big change from being a trader to then going and working as a carrying a bag.
Immediately after the financial crisis of 2008, like I could trade the equities. It was just like a very natural thing, and it went well for probably 3 years, like really well. And then I spent 2 more years working 90 hours a week for all of these years, and making like almost nothing.
Legitimately 90 hours a week?
Legitimately 90 hours a week. Because we'd work overnight, and then we'd stay for the open, and then there would be like a 6-hour gap where we'd come back, and you get addicted to it. Like I was pumped to go back into work.
Right.
And so once you're around it like this, and you're like, it's that... I call it, I say this on a lot of podcasts, this is the dance between order and chaos, right? There's plenty of chaos to be had, so there's like slight retreats, and then when it's going well, it's like intoxicating.
Yeah.
So we were going in there, working 90 hours a week, and we have these statistical patterns, and it's all proprietary, so I can't share too much about it, but it was working very well for 2 years. And then it worked 50-50 for probably 2 years. And that is dangerous.
It's frightening.
Because you're like, okay, so it works one time, and then it doesn't work, and then it doesn't work 2 more times.
Right.
It's just all garbage, but then it works well 2 more times.
Especially if you've had that run of success where it's working, and so you are counting on this income, you're counting on this success rate, this confidence.
And everyone's like, market's cyclical, like we'll work through this, like just anomalies, and you can convince yourself that it is an anomaly for 2 years. And then I got to the end of it. I was sitting around a table just like this with some friends, old basketball buddies, and we were complaining about our jobs, as friends do when they get together. And one guy's like, I worked 60 hours this week, and I made like, he says a number that I was like, not bad.
Yeah.
And I was like, it got around to me, and I'm like, I worked 90 hours this week. And I think I lost a little bit of money.
I owe people money.
I think like my commissions came back, because every time you trade a future, it costs you money.
Yeah.
So this isn't like you show up and like you're just trading cards.
Yeah.
You pay to be a part of the transaction. And there's seat fees and all the things. So I actually lost money, and they like looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, you know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to go get a job at the Verizon kiosk at the mall, because I'd make a lot more money. So we're just sitting around talking about this, and one of my friends is like, yeah, my dad, he works at IBM, and they just acquired this company it was called SPSS. Remember SPSS? It's the analytical software.
Yeah.
And he's like, they're looking for guys, and like they can't find any math guys.
I didn't realize it was SPSS, but that makes more sense how you got to Tableau.
Yeah, so SPSS was it was really data science heavy, and they have a team selling this, but it's very difficult to like put that in the hands of a software sales guy and be like, explain to people Bayesian algorithms or regression algorithms and these kinds of things. And I could like barely do it, but I could talk it well enough.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I was still in the frame of mind being like, this'll work out just fine. Markets are cyclical. And he's like, oh, well, yeah, you should at least talk to my dad. His name's Bruce Jones. I'm going to get him on the podcast. He's like the godfather of software sales. And he'll probably try to be humble and deny that, but for the record, Bruce Jones is the godfather of software sales.
I'm going to sit on the couch when he comes in.
You might want to.
Yeah.
So he was like, I called him and I was like, hey, I was talking with your son, and he said, I should call you. He's like, oh, yeah, come on over. I'm in the Sears Tower. And the Sears Tower is across the street from the Chicago Mercantile Exchange.
Okay.
So I had never been in the Sears Tower as a lifelong Chicago guy.
Wow.
And so I was like, I'm going to the Sears Tower. And it was like an event. And that's the reason I took the interview. And I didn't even know it was an interview. I thought I was just talking.
Yeah. But
you know how this works out. It's like, that counts.
Yeah.
So I go in there and he's like, yeah. He just like world-class salesman. I was like, walked in there, no chance it was going to happen. And then walked out of there like, I'm going to be working for IBM. And so he's like, you got to talk to the hiring manager. It's this guy over on the 11th floor. I think it was the 11th. And so I go down there, and he's like, yeah, so what do you expect for base salary? I was like, I don't know what that is.
What is that?
And so, like, when you don't know what that is...
That's bad leverage.
Well, it's bad leverage, but then someone has to explain it to you.
Right.
And so he was like, it took him a second to be like, is this guy serious?
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
And he was like, that's the money we give you to show up. And I was like, you kidding? That happens? As much of that as there is, I'll take that.
Yeah.
And so I was freaking out. And so like 2 weeks later, I was in Armonk, New York for IBM training. And then I still retained my seat and stuff. Like I can trade to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And I do. Someday I'll show that stuff on the machine.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But it's like, yeah, it just was like ultimate stability overnight. I didn't even know that existed.
Were you already thinking about family and so it wasn't necessarily about that. It was just about, you know, the stability of life and the job and like a different, more stable way to be.
There's like things you can do when you're young that you can kind of handle because you're young and there's like you enjoy the risk essentially, and you can only do it for so long before it's like I think we're gonna run out of gas.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was telling this to Bruce. I was like, I think I was like probably 27 or something like that. And I was like, I don't know if this is gonna go well. If I'm gonna make it to 29. And and then everything changed from then.
So, so when you go to IBM, how long were you there?
2 years.
Did you taper off the trading, or did you pretty much take it down to a level where it's at today? Meaning, were you kind of moonlighting, doing a little of both for a while?
I was still very much addicted to it.
Yeah.
Like, I would get off of work and then like sprint home and see what was going on at the Chinese Open, which is at 5. And would sling them around for a few hours and then occasionally pull a couple of lighters.
See, I think that that mindset of not going from, because most people, they go from this job to this job and they go from this job to this job. The trading wasn't really a job. It was more, I mean, it's a job, but it's not like a punch in, punch out, here's your salary, you know, I interviewed for this.
Yep.
You know, it's a way of life for a while that you never really got out of. And I've always kind of been curious about how you have this job, you started this company, you do this side gig, you're running this with your friend, you're running this with your brother, like all these things that you're doing at once.
Yeah.
Because I think that's somewhat unique, at least it is to me, because I've gone job to job to job to job. Right. Not looking for, let me see what other jobs I can tack on. When do you think that mentality started? Did it have to do with the trading in IBM, or has it?
Yeah, so I've always wanted to be in entrepreneurial endeavors, however I could get a part of them. And so I have friends that call me after these podcasts, and they're like, "Remember when you called me and you wanted to start this thing?" I was like, "Nope," because it was just one of 100.
Yeah.
And I had my buddy Bill Edmondson on here, and he was we had tried to do something one time, and it just blew up. And I was like, I remember that one. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've always tried to do stuff like that, and it's gone. I've had some greater successes and some successes that were, I mean, not successes at all. Like just they die on the vine.
Yeah.
But where did it start? I'd say like it started when I knew it was possible.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'd see guys that were trading and then they owned a bunch of apartments and they were like, okay, well if I blow out today, I'll like still have apartments.
Mm-hmm. So some income.
Yeah, like I won't die.
Mm-hmm.
And if I blew out, it was over. So it was like that's when I started thinking
Yeah.
like you need to have more than one iron in the fire.
So more risk mitigation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so like
Balanced portfolio.
Well, I don't like balancing my portfolio because I want my portfolio to be, what's the term, dangerous. You know?
Yeah.
So like I want it to be able to do stuff.
Right.
Because if markets go way up and you're too balanced, then you don't make anything. But then you can look at it from the opposite way and say you won't get killed. So I get that.
That's the way I look at it.
I know. But yeah, so in terms of like companies and like little things, I started to when the iPhone came out
Mm-hmm.
and you first open it up and you see these little buttons on here, or I'm not looking at buttons, but like the little icons,
Mm-hmm.
and you click on each one. Someone made that thing and they just like put it in the store and people wanted it
Yeah.
enough and they went and downloaded it and there's income that came off of that. I was like completely enamored by that because I had the first Windows phone. It like slid open and there was like
Yeah.
all those buttons in there.
I had a Windows phone too.
Yeah, those were like the first smartphones.
Yeah.
Prior to the iPhone, and I just thought that was fantastic, and that if I could get involved in making those things, like that would be really cool to have something that everyone saw. And so that like kind of kicked off the obsession with app creation in the after hours world.
So what was the first, I guess, side gig like that you worked on?
So in college, we made one. It was a website called Basic Nutrition Online,
Mm-hmm.
and it was. This is the first thing that like worked ever.
Hmm.
Well, I guess prior to that, I had like an eBay selling business before people knew how to work eBay,
Yeah.
and like.
Were you buying stuff to sell, or were you selling stuff you had?
Well, I would go around the neighborhood and I would ask people
Oh, so you're
if they
doing
wanted to
that
sell
thing.
something, or if they wanted to buy something,
Yeah.
and I would take like the retail price of the thing they wanted to buy and see if I could get it cheaper on the internet.
This is the 40-year-old virgin model. I don't know if you remember in that movie, his girlfriend owns that store across from the Circuit City that he works
Right.
at, and she buys and sells stuff on eBay. And he's quizzing her about it. He's like, well, why don't people just do that themselves? She's like, I don't know.
That's a great question because
Yeah.
it was totally available.
Right.
I would have been like probably
Yeah.
like 16, 17 for that.
He's like, why do you have a store? She's like, I don't know.
It's not. It doesn't make sense to have the store.
Yeah.
Selling it on
Right,
eBay.
yeah.
But yeah. So that the eBay deal was called it was called Sell Anything,
Mm-hmm.
and my sister made the logo for me, and I printed up flyers and I handed them out.
That's great.
That was pretty wild. And then Basic Nutrition was like a sports nutrition supplement website before GNC and Vitamin Shop were doing it really well.
So you were selling nutritional stuff
Yeah.
online. And where did so how does that come from? Because you haven't done anything like that before. Now you're starting an online retail shop where you have to go procure product and then fulfill it and send it out and invoice customers and set up payment. I mean,
Yeah.
how did you figure all that stuff out?
So it sprung off the eBay thing. So
Okay.
like if I could get people to give me stuff to sell, like business was good, and I would make a guaranteed rate on everything I sold because it was like 5% to sell, 5% to buy on the variable. So it was pennies. But then I couldn't always get people to give me stuff to sell.
Right.
So I was like, I need something that I can count on coming in all the time that I can sell. And so I would have been early in college for this, and I decided that I would find there's like a wholesaler. It's called Europa, EUROPA.
Yeah.
They sell all of the major manufacturers' supplements. So like the real ones, not
Yeah.
like the ones that you hear people hawking on
Right.
online and stuff. Although I was hawking them online too. So I could buy a pallet of protein at a way discount rate from these guys with like a tax ID, and then they would ship it to my dorm room.
So you had pallets of whey protein in your
In
dorm
the
room.
dorm room. Yeah, and I would cut them down, and then I would sell it on campus particularly, but I would like put signs around and be like, hey, you want to buy this protein? I got a killer price on them.
Mm-hmm.
It beats whatever you're getting them for at the store. And they would be like, people would come to my dorm room and be like, here's $40. Do you have the chocolate kind? And I'd be like, yes, I do.
Yeah.
So that was that. And then we also sold them, by mail order. So like I would put them in boxes, and we were packing up 20, 30 boxes a night. It was like first foray into like the internet and the power of the internet to like bring traffic, which was insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and did you set up the site yourself? I mean, it sounds like you had a partner, you had a buddy you were doing this with.
I had a buddy, but he was not into the web portion.
Yeah,
so
he's just packing boxes and printing flyers.
He was more involved in like the marketing stuff. So I built the site using the tools that you could build if you were completely amateur.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a lot of templates, a lot of messing around with it, calling buddies that knew what they were doing for favors.
Yeah.
And that's how that got done, yeah.
And then what happened with Nutrition Online? Did you sell it? Did you just stop doing it?
I sold it to a buddy for pennies.
Yeah.
Because I was just done with it.
Yeah.
And like, it helps to be in college when that business is going on. It's like not something you want to take with you, because it would make like $10,000 a year.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like anything insane.
Okay, so that was somewhat successful. If for nothing else, sort of teaching you the business model of that goods delivery and order, right?
Yeah. I had never done anything like that, outside of eBay. And eBay, like, the eBay business kind of informed it. And that was like the start of all.
Have you taken payments online? Like you had credit card payments online on your website and stuff?
Yep.
I mean, there's some effort. There's some lifting in that.
Yeah, that was the first time I found out that credit cards take 2.5% to 3%.
Yeah.
I was like,
wait a
robbery.
second. Yeah.
Why aren't people carrying cash?
Yeah. Hard to
or
take
like, why do
cash
businesses
online.
allow the credit card company to put a 3% tax on everything?
They hate it.
They do hate it. But yeah, I didn't know that.
Okay, so at this time, IBM slinging software. You've finished the nutrition. Is next the sports, the baseball app?
No. Okay. So there were a bunch of failed things between then and there.
Give me one good failed one.
Okay. So my favorite failed thing I tried to do was a service that would allow you to trade gift card values with other people that are trading gift cards. Okay, so if you had...
So like I got a Bed Bath & Beyond gift card,
yes,
and I hate Bed Bath & Beyond, and he's got Walmart, and we can swap.
Yeah, so the basic idea is that highly available stores in your area would keep their value the best. Or if there was like a specialty component, that value would go up and down based on the eye of the beholder, right? So you would say, I have a Bed Bath & Beyond gift card. I don't care about Bed Bath & Beyond. I'd trade $100 at Bed Bath & Beyond for $95 at Walmart or $95 on Amazon. Or if you're a little kid and the new Grand Theft Auto game's coming out, you want GameStop money.
So how does your cut kick in? I'm going to take your second.
Yeah, so it would just be like, it would be just like the Chicago Board of Trade. Like you'd sit there would be ladders, and there would be different bids and offers for your specific value, and then people could buy it for under par or over par.
And why did this fail?
Because it's impossible to get the companies to open up their APIs.
Ah.
So they would be like, why would I let you mess with my gift card system?
Yeah, what's your name again? Lee?
Yeah, and then, oh, by the way, why would I let you devalue $1 in my store?
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's where it fell apart. It was just like, there's third-party sites that will allow you to trade the physical card.
But that's what I thought you were talking about first. And that's why I was like, well, how do you benefit from providing that marketplace unless you're doing advertising and it's...
I still love the idea, and someone will figure it out someday. But it'll be like I'll go online with my new Amazon gift card. Now, Amazon is one of those ones that would always be trading right around $1 because they have everything.
Yeah.
But like the GameStop example is, if a store is going out of business, and then they say, or the store is going out of business in your area specifically, then I don't want to drive 45 miles to go do this. In theory, like if you want to make a hard cost argument, then you can say it's not worth it in gas. So I'll take 95 cents on the dollar to go to Walmart because there's one close.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense. And
Yeah.
I think it could get really interesting when if retail brick and mortar ever becomes less popular.
So, best then example. What business, what app, side gig worked really well?
So the first one that ever worked really well was I was sitting with two of my good friends, Tyler Baker, who will be on this podcast, and Tim Blair.
Can't believe Tyler hasn't been on yet.
Well, we try. I want him to come live.
Yeah,
but he just had a kid, so
he's
I'll cut him
Florida?
some slack. He's in North Carolina.
North Carolina.
So they had kind of come up with the idea and the initial build for a thing called TeamSync. And so TeamSync is an application that will allow for collaboration of all the different teams in a college basketball or a college athletic program to then report up to the AD who's accountable for NCAA regulations. And if a coach wants to see where a kid is at a specific time, so we can schedule him for medical or make sure he's on a bus or make sure he's in class. And then the hierarchy would allow you to see that in any different team. So we did that, and I was like, I just want to be involved on new stuff because all my other stuff doesn't work. Maybe we'll add this to the pile. But let's go.
So did you guys have like an AD like at Liberty or somebody that you knew that was like, oh yeah, this would be really, really cool?
We didn't
You had
have
some
it.
market feedback?
We didn't have it initially, but then that's the first sale we made because they knew us.
Yeah.
And then once you get, and this is the reason why the podcast dollars are coming from buddies before we had any views. It was like, I need to get one sale. And then once you get that one sale, you can get recommendations from conference to conference or coach to coach or AD to AD. And we ended up selling 350 copies of the software in a year, which was, I had no idea that was available. But we had been building the skills from enterprise software sales, and it was just like, it was awesome.
Did you have a good sense of, when I think about starting, or other people may think about starting a business like that you haven't done, it's different than anything you'd done prior, even though you've done a lot of different stuff. Like, how did you determine how to price it, and like, what's the right scale? Like, what will they accept, and what's also going to cover our costs? I know software is a little different because it's sort of like you make it, all the expenses up front.
The inventory is always full.
That's right. But, what will the market bear? What's a fair price? Like, did you guys revise that as you went, or did you set it as best as you could and then sort of stick to it?
So we set it as best as we could, got market feedback, and then kind of realized that a lot of programs are on a shoestring, or like we were vying for the last few dollars in the account, and they didn't really have any of this kind of stuff. So
what did it cost? Is that something you share?
$1,000.
$1,000, and that's for like a site license. For like, say, Liberty, that would be for all their programs, or is it per user?
So $1,000 per team.
Okay.
And then you could get essentially the ELA or the enterprise license agreement as much as you can eat for 10.
Okay.
And so we did a few of those, but basically the way it looks is we were like $1,000, and that was based on what bad things can happen if you don't have a tool like this. So say if you're a college basketball team and a guy misses 3 flights this year because he didn't know where to be, or if a kid gets put on academic probation because he wasn't in the class because he didn't know, like all these things, we were like, what value would you put on that? And so we settled on 1,000, and we offered incentives and things for like returning or year-long commitments or 3-year commitments, things like that.
And it seemed to hold up pretty well as you went through.
It held up better than I thought it would.
Yeah.
But it was an awesome run. And then what we found out was that there were competitors in the space that were charging like $50,000.
That's kind of why I'm curious, like how you know. But it may explain why you were successful too, right?
Well, it was just like, I remember the sales cycles being like one phone call and like just a quick demo, or I'd be like, here's a video, check it out, and then I'd get an order. Yeah. And so like that was completely polar opposite to anything I had ever done. Right. And it was like just a ton of fun to be involved with. It was like, it reminded me of trading again in the early days. It was just like, I can't wait to do this again.
How long did you guys have that business?
3 years, 2 years, 2.5, 3 years, yeah.
And what was the decision point on, selling it or continuing to grow it yourself?
Yeah, so that was more in Baker's court than anything else because he's made himself into a formidable negotiator in terms of selling businesses, and same with Tim. The decision point came when we decided that they were offering a fair multiple, and so there were some offers that came in earlier for much less. And
Are these from competitors?
Yeah.
Okay.
From competitors, because they were all essentially trying to get us out of the market because we're so think of it this way, if I'm trying to think of a tool, if Microsoft Office came up against an open source tool that was as good or maybe a little less good but free,
yeah,
or way cheaper,
go buy it to get it out of the
yes, you got to get them out of
the landscape. Yeah.
So do you ever wonder why there's no open source Microsoft Word? That's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because that's a big business.
Right.
And you could do it. You could do that for free very easily, I think. But that's besides the point. The time to sell was a difficult one, and because you've spent so much time and effort creating something, and then you finally get one to stand up and be legit.
Yeah.
And then you're
yeah, I guess you're wondering. So I had this conversation with a buddy. I have a business idea, which you and I have talked about before. Not ready to share here.
Potato chips.
Thank you. We can edit that out, right?
I just cut it.
No, actually, Stephen, can you make sure that you cut that twice and put picture in picture? Potato chips.
But I had this buddy that was interested in doing this with me. That we talked about it a couple times, and he's saying, okay, the flaw I see is that you're not going to. In order to make it valuable to sell, these 5 things have to be in place. I'm like, no.
There's no selling.
That's not what I'm interested in this for. It's not a profit engine for me. But I can see how, especially if you have multiple partners, imagine we hadn't discussed that, right? And you guys are getting to a point where now it's a good multiple, it's valuable, it's the dynamic of, did we do this to turn a profit? And hey, now we've turned this big profit by selling, or no, we built this. This is our baby. I want to continue to be a part of it and grow it. That's an interesting dilemma.
So there's 2 things I would mention on this, is that when you are working with a small team and you genuinely enjoy going to work and working with these people, and then the thought enters your mind that it could end, and there's somehow a little payday on the end of it,
right?
It's I don't know, probably not. But then an offer came back that was well, I guess
it's a bigger pay.
That's okay. Fair enough. See you guys later.
And you're not the only one making the decision, and right.
And I left that mostly up to them because I was having a great time, and anything I said would be tainted with. I want to play the game more.
Yeah.
And so it started to make sense, and that was that.
So how much did you sell it for?
I'll let Baker talk to that.
I figured I'd try. A good interviewer asks the tough questions.
Yes.
Even if he doesn't.
And a good interviewee will decline.
Yes. Well, you passed. So that's a really cool one. I think that this is about the time you and I met one another. Is when you guys were selling that.
Yes.
Any other kind of when I've known you, business ventures that you started up that are worth talking about?
No.
Did you ever have a lawn mowing business or anything?
No, that was the eBay phase for sure.
That was a smarter idea.
Well, I'm allergic to cut grass, which I understand is a weird one, but I would sneeze for hours.
No, that's a good one, because then you don't have to cut the grass.
Yeah. Well,
especially down here.
So I'll tell you one thing that came out of TeamSync. Is that where you're going next?
Yes.
Baseball scouting. So this was the wildest thing, because I have.
Now, I actually got these confused. Yeah. That's what I thought TeamSync was the stats one, but it isn't.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
So TeamSync is geared specifically towards college sports teams.
Right.
On it was born outside of TeamSync, doing a lot of the same things, but then we found out, and I'll let Baker talk to this in more specificity, but it is to say that there are 30 professional baseball teams, And baseball is run in such a way where everything's done on paper, and the most advanced things that they're doing is in Excel. And so anytime you see a market where something's being done in Excel, like it's ripe for change. And so we looked at this business, and we worked very specifically with the Miami Marlins, and they said, okay, because people started asking us to see TeamSync that were outside of the college scope.
Yeah.
And so we would show up to like meet with San Antonio Spurs or like Dallas Mavericks, or we met with Texas Legends, which was like the D-League basketball team, because it was like it's the closest thing to college without being college.
Right.
So we're like seeing if there was more there, and these baseball teams would be like, "We love this," and we were like, "This isn't going to do what you want it to do. Tell us the things that you would want it to do for it to make sense for you." And then sat down and had these conversations, and then this new app was born.
And what did they want? What were they looking for?
They wanted like, okay, so they're in every. This is the way I explain it. Have you heard of the traveling salesman algorithm?
No.
Okay, so it's like if you can solve this problem, like it's Nobel Prize time right now. So it's trying to figure out the shortest distance between multiple points on a map. And so every baseball team has probably 40 amateur scouts. And so these guys drive all over the country, they fly all over the country, and they're looking for a kid that can like throw a fastball 100 miles an hour, or they're looking for a kid that can like spin a ball in such a way. And where do you think these guys are?
They're in Houston or Beaumont or
They're
Jacksonville.
everywhere.
Yeah.
So like one time this guy hops on a call and he's like, yeah, there's this kid outside of Johnson City, Tennessee, behind the CVS. So they play behind the CVS over there, and he can really sling it. And I was like, how would you know?
Golly, yeah.
This is why there's 40 scouts, because they're like combing the world for these kids that can throw hard.
Yeah.
And the way that they report on it is they're like, okay, so Jimmy could throw hard, and I like the way he tilted his cap, and he was a nice kid, nice parents. This is how it has been done historically. And so we said, all right, so
They're writing this down and like mailing it?
they'll bring it back, and they'll take a thing like this, and they'll sit in a room with all the other scouts, and they'll be like, who do you like? Who's 5 stars?
Got it.
And say, okay, when it's draft day.
Like a war room sort of.
Yeah, I always like liken it to Moneyball, which cool anecdote on Moneyball too. Like we got to meet the guys that were in the movie, the real guys.
Oh, yeah, the guys that were being portrayed.
Yeah.
Like Billy Bean?
Yeah. So we got like on the phone.
Yeah, okay, that's great.
Yeah,
That's
so
pretty cool.
We got to meet some like pretty cool characters
Yeah.
in both these programs. So if you're a scout and you're trying to find a kid who's in an as obscure of a place as behind the CVS in Johnson City, you have to be very cognizant, because you can't take this trip all the way out to Johnson City and then say, I got to spend a whole day and only see one right-handed kid or one left-handed kid or one shortstop and a kid that can bat. What you have to do is figure out where all the kids are. And I say kids, that sounds creepy. Where all the prospects are. And then you have to figure out what the shortest distance, so that you can see as many as you can that fit your criteria.
So that's what they wanted. You to help them optimize the physical logistics of their scouting group.
And what's another thing about baseball that would stop you from playing the game, that would essentially throw a huge wrench in this trip? Rain.
Oh, rain. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you can't see any
So if it's going to rain,
activity.
did you play baseball in high school?
For 1 year in high school.
Okay, so if it rains, they're just like, game's canceled.
Yeah.
When are we going to play it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Call so-and-so, see
Right.
when it is. It's like very unorganized.
Right.
So what we would do is like we would overlay the weather patterns, say where is it going to rain, where is it going to snow, where is it going to be too hot or too windy. Am I going to get a good view on this kid if it's snowing and he's pitching anyways? It's like, might not be his best look.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll say, where can I go within 100 miles of where this particular prospect is that I want to see, and see players like him.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like it's the cleanest way I've found of solving that traveling salesman algorithm, but for baseball very specifically.
Right.
And then the other piece of this is, in order to build an app like that, you have to enter in manually.
Well, that's what I was wondering is what the data feed from that. Like the weather is one thing, but the where the kids are and
Absolute brutality.
Okay.
So you've got to go in, and I think there's like 4,000 or 5,000 high schools in the United States, and you have to go to every one of their website.
there's got to be more high schools than
You wanna
4,000 or
scope that out?
5,000. There's got to be 4,000 or 5,000 high schools in Texas.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, well, he'll find it. So you've got to go through, I think it's right around the order of magnitude of like 5,000, maybe 10 max, is my guess. So you have to go through, and you have to go to every high school's website and find their baseball schedule and punch it into
No.
a database. Yes, that's how this got done.
Who was doing this?
You hire people that will do data entry work, and then you don't even there's ones that you can't find, and then you get a phone call. It's like, you ever seen this kid in Honolulu? He can throw a slider,
Yeah.
and I don't have his schedule. It's like, okay, well, let me find that high school. There's like, how many does it say?
26,000 public schools and about 10 private.
Okay.
10 private, so that's 36.
So that's 30,
LN.
yeah.
36,
That's way more than I
almost
thought.
37, yeah.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the task.
Yeah. Impossible.
Not impossible, completely doable, but we don't do them all. So like if there's a school that hasn't had a scout, or a scout hasn't visited that school in 10 years, like, we're not going to put it in, because if there really is a kid that can throw it hard, we'll find out, and then we'll put that schedule in.
And there's some duplication on being able to, you got 30 teams, right? It's the same data for all 30 teams, effectively, except for what their scouts are doing. But
Yes.
yeah.
So none of that is shared under any circumstances between the teams. All they get is the calendars,
That's what I mean.
scheduling.
But like that
Yeah.
stuff you don't have to do 30 times. Okay, so
So if I had to do 30,000 schools 30 times,
yeah. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting. And so what was the lifespan or the timeline of that app?
yeah. So this one
You guys-
still runs.
Oh, this
Yeah.
is still going. Still under you guys still run it?
Mhm.
You haven't sold this or anything.
No, this is still live and in production today. They're a podcast sponsor.
And what's the name?
Onit
Onit.
Professional Scouting Services.
ONIT?
ONIT. And hilariously enough, there has become a sports supplement company that has come into popularity in the last few years called Onit. That's ONNIT. And so when I say I play with this thing called Onit,
Yeah.
and people are like, "Oh, sports nutrition." I was like,
Yeah.
"No, I left
No,
out of
no, no.
college."
ONIT.
And they're super popular. They sponsor the Joe Rogan podcast.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's some overlap here.
Yeah, everything touches everything. This is like spaghetti.
Okay, so and is this you and Tyler and same crew that
Same
did
crew, yeah.
TeamSync?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's other characters involved that are instrumental too, but
Yeah.
those are like the main pieces.
Well, that's really interesting. Glad to hear that's still going well. Of the 30 teams, how many are you at liberty to say how many you have?
I don't know. I'll say more than half.
Okay. All right.
I'll let Baker describe that.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I should have him on. Why am I talking to this guy?
Yeah, cue him up.
You cut this.
This is one of our worst episodes ever.
Well, I can't sit here and be like
I know.
saying things.
Okay, so what are you working on now?
So the thing I'm like most excited about right now, other than my day job, is we have a new app coming out called Contract Spot.
Mm-hmm.
And so Contract Spot, in my time at Amazon, I learned just how broken contract management is at companies.
Everywhere, even the good companies.
Absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
So, and I called some friends beforehand. I said, "Hey, you're a software sales guy. In our time at Tableau, we worked at Tableau together. There would be about 25% of the customers would miss their payments, and they would get their software turned off, or like they would have to pay a fee."
Yep.
Or if there was any discount on the contract, they would lose out on it, or any trigger in the contract that would allow them to take some kind of advantage of an incentive. It's just gone because someone forgot, or it's in a spreadsheet somewhere, but that person left. And this happens, like I said, a lot. Like when you get your ARR report, which is accounts receivable, something like that, that red number that is people that haven't paid is like what gives, right?
Yeah, right.
So when you come to find out how they're actually managing this, it's several people in a room, and they're isolated from the rest of the business on purpose because they would be bombarded by the rest of the organization saying, hey, buy me this, give me that. And so what they do is they sit there with a spreadsheet, and they're like, here's all of the things, and they segment them out into what's most important, what's least important. And they are accountable for kicking off the POs at the right time or starting the negotiations at the right time.
Which sounds like, okay, well, that's your job. But they've got thousands of those to do.
Yes. And so I always, as the vendor on the manufacturer side, was thinking, okay, why aren't they responding to me?
Yeah, right.
It's because you come to find out, the average company has like 5,000 vendors.
Yeah.
Which means they've got 5,000 sales guys asking for the PO.
Right.
And so no wonder it gets bogged down.
Yeah.
These guys are having a brutal time even managing this. And then one of those people leaves, and they're like, no.
It was on their hard drive, like they kept it in their folders.
Yep.
We've got this SharePoint, but it's not consistent. Yeah.
Exactly. So the example I'll use for our like killer app on this one is most companies have enterprise license agreement with Microsoft, and it affords them all of their Microsoft Word and Excel and Outlook. Every company's got that, so we'll use that as a bullet point. We'll say, let's say that ELA is $10 million, and in a lot of Microsoft contracts there will be an option for them to pay 3 months early, and it will give them a 10% discount. So a 10% discount on that figure is $1 million.
Yeah.
If you forget, it costs you $1 million. If you miss the whole contract and it comes over the top, and Microsoft will ding your credit rating, and it will also give you zero leverage to negotiate the contract the following year. So it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so what we've done is we've created an app where you can, it's very simple, you can load your contract up, and then it'll go into a database. We'll keep it secure as the Department of Defense would require. And then you can label the contract as it goes in, and then it will alert all interested parties at whatever interval you want them to be. So like 30 days before the contract's due, you can have 3 people know. And then when someone leaves, 2 people still get a notification. Or if all 3 of them leave, there will be some overall administrator who will be accountable for everything.
So this is really cool. You and your partner on this, you guys close to launching this, right?
Yeah, this will come out by the end of the week.
Okay, by the end of this week.
It'll be live, yeah.
That's cool. And what's it called?
Contractspot.io.
I love it. What's the IO stand for?
I have no idea, but
is that the new .com?
It's the new .com
I'm
because
not ready for that.
people went out and bought all the .coms. Try to buy a .com of a word.
I'm gonna go buy chrisryder.io.
You should. I bet chrisryder.com's taken.
So Texas license plates. Oh yeah, I wonder what chrisryder.com did. Oh yeah, Texas license plates.
You want to take over under on if it's available or not?
There's no way it's available.
Right.
Yeah, nothing's available.
Well, I own LeeCorning.com.
There is a strongman. There's a Chris Ryder that's a strongman. One of these guys who bends metal and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, because if you Google me, that guy will come up.
Right.
Or if you Google my name. Did he?
Ryder.com is for sale.
Ooh.
$800.
All right. Well, here, I can pay in quarters, and I got 200 left over.
Well, there goes my conversation piece.
Well, you can have my website pulled up here, and that can be your conversation
So
piece.
yeah, go to
I
contract.
just bought it, so if you want it, you're gonna have to.
Now it's 900.
It's 1,000 now.
You're gonna have to pay the man on that one.
Pull up contractspot.io and throw it on the screen if you can.
Okay, here's what I am interested in that process is you had a great idea for an app, like a need that needs to be solved, problem that needs to be solved. But you're not a developer, right?
No.
Like you don't know how to go code an app.
No.
Your partner isn't. So like take me as stupid guy as briefly as you can. Like how do you take that idea and then turn it into something that is marketable in an app store?
Yes. So this has been like the great awakening of my career, is that everything is possible. And so you say, okay, so let's say let's use TeamSync as an example, because this
Yeah.
is one where like one of the co-founders was technical and could write the code.
Yeah.
But we were all so young that I would argue, and he might mimic this, to say that he wouldn't write very good code. So what we did was everything you want that could build an app is available in pieces in open source. So you can take the notification service that sends text messages and these things, or like a calendar service, or and you can string them all together using other open source tools. So it can be done by a relatively low level programmer.
And so did you guys go get a programmer that knows how to do that kind of thing, or are you guys figuring this out on your home
So
computer?
for ContractSpot?
Yeah.
So I'll make the delineation here. So for TeamSync, we had a full-time technical co-founder.
You guys did that.
Do it all.
Right.
Yes. That's purely organic. Now for ContractSpot, the deal is so if you go out to development services, they will charge you an arm and a leg. Like it's extremely expensive. One of them, like the one that makes a ton of really killer enterprise level apps, is called Bottle Rocket.
Yeah.
Extremely expensive.
Yeah.
But the best.
Right.
No questions asked. The best. There are development services. Like there's one called TopTal. They're in San Francisco. It's like the best of the best developers. They can make anything in the world. It's extremely expensive. But for little niche apps like what I'm talking about that do a very specific thing, like you can find people that can build you components of it. So like ContractSpot doesn't exist anywhere else. The components don't necessarily exist anywhere else except the database that's just for sale. We actually use S3, Amazon S3 for that.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's all available. Auto scaling. That's where we get the security that the Department of Defense would work on.
Yeah.
Like, that's perfect. But everything else you have to make by hand. So you create these straw men, or let's call it a flow chart of what you want your app to do in its entirety, and you can outsource that to specific developers. And the other piece is like you can find a project manager that will do all of that for you. You just show them the app and all of its very detailed parts, and these are the things I do on the weekend.
Yeah. So how do you find these guys? I have no doubt you can find these guys that'll do that work for you. Like, how did you find the folks that helped you with this?
So So I'll bring on one other failed business. It was called Flyby, and it was supposed to punch in it was like the precursor to LastPass. It's like I want to pump in all my passwords all the time because I'm super tired of doing that. And it was introduced to me by a guy named Anthony Heilich, who was on the podcast, who's now head of one of the products at Google Cloud and AI. There's this thing called Upwork where you can go. You've heard of this?
Yeah.
And I've used Upwork for 100
you've showed me this for some of the data entry stuff we pull from LinkedIn.
So you can go there and find someone that will do any task in terms of tech. And I think they do other, like you can find accountants on there and stuff, but like you can find people that will program a very specific thing and then just ship you the code. And then you can use that, plug it in different spots, and you've got a thing that's functional. They just have to be able to talk to each other, and that's where the last sewing together part comes in. That's
what I think is really interesting and helpful for our viewer, is that you've got ideas. If you got a great idea, I like the point that nothing's impossible in this day and age, especially with this interconnectedness. You got a great idea, like you can go do it. Like you can go do it. Yeah. So the most amazing thing that has ever happened to the local small entrepreneur is the advent of the cloud. So the biggest thing that would keep you from doing these very specific businesses in the past would be that you would have to go and buy a server rack and account for your highest potential need in terms of capacity. Yeah. And so AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, Rackspace. Now, instead of having to cough up $100,000 for infrastructure and another $100,000 for development, like I can build something for really inexpensive and then put it on the cloud. Yeah. And then AWS will auto scale it for me. Right. So I'll only pay if what you need
thing starts working.
Right.
So that's like eureka.
Yeah.
And that's why they do so well, because
I've heard of those guys.
Yeah, heard of them?
It was kind of interesting though, like on Prime Day, to see. I don't know if you pay attention to that, like I was, but I actually had a couple things I was waiting to buy, and I'm working that day, but I had my.
You don't have like a straight shot to the mothership
No,
from
I
the
don't.
Amazon building,
and I start going there to try to check out. I'm like, well, this is weird. Like I know it just started at whatever it was, 10 a.m. or 2 p.m. or whatever it was, and it wouldn't work, and I kept like trying again, refreshing it, and like for 45 minutes, and I start like emailing people like, hey.
So I currently work in the software quality assurance world, and so
As did I. Yeah.
So yeah, you were at applause. Different tilts on the same axis, but like our world was going nuts about that because there's what would make a site slow, because it was not. Amazon is not having hardware issues.
Yeah, and it's not a traffic. It can't be. Like,
no.
To your point, like we invented the immediately scalable, dynamic scalability model.
Yeah, and you get first priority.
And it's all of our hardware, right?
Right.
It ain't that.
It's not that. So what it comes down to is efficiency in the code, and then there's a site as big as Amazon is just chock full of old snippets from old marketing campaigns that all still sit on the page because no one wanted to delete them. So if a page is having a long time to render, one of the quickest things you can do to make your website faster is go into your cache and then kill all your old promotionals or like old RGB values that change the color and things. So Amazon probably has a lot of that.
Yeah, probably late with that.
That was like our world was just like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Because you'd think they'd have it right.
Yeah.
Like, who else would have it more right?
Well, and it's a great way for you to go. You can use that. I'm sure you're using that in your sales pages. Look, it happens to everybody. You got to be prepared.
It's not always hardware.
Yeah.
It's the code itself sometimes.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. All right, I want to recap a couple of the. Have I left out anything? Because I've been taking a couple of notes.
So the podcast is the thing I'm the most excited about of anything.
Yeah.
It's like and this just feeds into the cloud conversation, is that when you want to do something, it's super available. I hear a lot of people talk about how opportunity is too hard to come by. You can do absolutely anything.
Yeah.
And the internet will let you do it. And no one has to buy it or watch it or care about what you're doing, but like you can do it. And like the podcast is my like kind of
it's like your passion project.
Well, it's so I tell all these stories about things I've done, and like those are my favorite types of stories because like we didn't know how to code, we didn't know what business would fall out of TeamSync or if TeamSync would work, and then Contract Spot was like kind of fumbled into as well. So like you can learn how to do this stuff, and it's all available on YouTube and Code Academy and Udemy and Masterclass. All this stuff's out there for you to like learn how to do it. It's just like it's all in front of your fingertips for the first time ever.
Yeah.
So when I hear someone's like, I don't know how to do that, I was like,
well, nobody does until you learn it.
Yeah.
And it's never been easier to learn stuff.
If you sleep for like a couple hours less, you could pick it up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's what this podcast is like most often about.
Yeah, that's what's key. I remember you and me and Kyle Cummings were having dinner once in Houston. You remember that night? We had a good night.
That was the best night.
That was a fun night. Kyle was on one of your earlier programs.
Yeah, Kyle
Tableau Help.
Cummings right here, yeah.
Yep. But yeah, he's very similar to you, I think, in that he's done a lot of like individual venture stuff. He's been successful in, big corporate stuff as well. But he was talking about, I don't remember what the company was, but I remember him saying something like, people always, want to know about, the glamour of having your own company or, starting your own company. He's like, it's really hard. I mean, it's hard work. That's I think the thing that, you're saying, sleep 2 hours less, go learn it. I think in this day and age, everything is a choice. It's a choice. Like, you're not being held back because of some limitation because you can't afford the hardware or you don't have the know-how or you can't get to an audience. Like, none of that is a hindrance anymore. It's just a matter of, are you motivated? Do you want to make the time for it? And then it's ultimately your choice. Do it or don't do it.
So that's a great way to say it. My on the first episode of like this tilt of the podcast was with Tim Carter. He's the guy that brought those quarters over, by the way. He said, I love it when the hard stuff happens to me because I know that made some of the other guys quit that are in this same race against me.
Interesting.
And so like when we have like a week where I'm like scrambling to get a podcast done on time so that we can release so that Google doesn't demote us in the scales or the catalogs, is like, I bet you that there's a lot of guys that are on episode 17 right now and they didn't get something out because it was inconvenient this week. So if I make sure we do it every time, then we'll eventually win out. So that's the same thing with the apps. It's the same thing with your job.
Yeah.
You just hang in there long enough, like you'll eventually win if you're talented at all, really.
Don't blow out.
Don't blow out.
It's your bookend, right? Like you learn that in your first real gig.
Yep.
And it's still, it permeates into everything you've done since.
Yeah, risk management is the one thing that remains through all these things. It's like, don't blow it.
But I also, like you mentioned, kind of the podcast in the early days of the podcast. I know we've joked about this a couple times before, but like, the first time we did it, this is what the camera setup looked like. Like it was on a tripod. And or actually, I think
we had it in a pen dish.
One of the first couple times, we had it like balanced in a pen holder on a conference room table
with a pen like behind
and
your
we
cup.
Would put in a certain number of pens to get it angled just right. And then we watch it, we're like, oh, that was stupid. It should be like this, not like this.
Well, I didn't know.
No,
okay, well, now
but
we know.
I guess the point is like, it's hard work. Manage your risk. But also, like, be okay with learning as you go. Like, you're not going to launch, the best app in the world the first time you try. Like, you're going to trial and error. Like, TeamSync was maybe first, and your contract app is going to be way better because of all the things you learned in the last 20 years doing those others.
Yeah, so completely agree with that. And, one of the things I think is also a focus of this podcast is that we sit here and we talk with founders or successful people for however long I can get them to stay in the room, is that I leave that podcast up where we had it in the wrong way. And it was a funny podcast, by the way.
Yeah, it was a good one.
I leave that up because I don't want to make it look like it was always great.
I think it's great, yeah.
Because the journey is kind of ugly sometimes.
Yeah. But that's what makes it rewarding, I think, when you've got, the setup you have now and, 2 boxes of quarters.
Well, it's not by any means like we're not approaching the Joe Rogan throne yet, but maybe one day.
Maybe.
Yeah.
This is cool. This was really interesting. Here's some of the things I took. I liked what was the line about dancing between chaos and success?
Order and chaos.
Order and chaos, yeah.
So while I'm spouting off about things that I care about, there's a guy named Jordan Peterson who's talking about this very specific thing, and it's fascinated me for 2 years, and that's one of his taglines.
Yeah.
The dance between order and chaos, yep.
I like that. How can this go wrong? Avoid the blowout. Excel-based businesses are ripe for innovation.
Anytime someone's keeping track of something in an Excel sheet, it can be improved. Yep.
And we talked about everything being possible, but also the cloud being this great
proliferator. Yep.
Proliferator for small entrepreneurs.
It levels the field like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah. Okay. I'm still gonna just retire at 50 and not do anything. You haven't changed my mind on that.
Well, so I'll take it personal. You are going to start a potato chip company, and I keep on giving you extensions on your deadline. When's it going to happen?
We work, not Upwork. Still looking for like potato chip fryers on Upwork.
Yeah.
You can find developers all day long, but like potato chip fryers is a little tougher.
Well, we'll talk about that off camera.
Okay. Anything grinding your gears this week you want to talk about?
I can think of one while I hear your first one.
I only have one. So a buddy of mine and I watched television shows from time to time. Like we like these series, and we'll
Antoine?
watch Antoine. That's right. He's not watching because
It's too long for him. He's made that clear.
That's right. So Antoine Johnson and I we're watching Homeland right now, which we're way behind on that. We just picked it up.
Right.
We're on season 2, but it's great. Like did you ever watch Homeland?
No, I had a buddy that liked that show.
I've heard it's kind of gone off the rails in later seasons, but
It starts out great.
it starts out great. Yeah, first 2 seasons have been really good. Anyway, I'm noticing this, and this is actually Antoine's. He called this out, and then it made me laugh. They're in the car. They're being tailed by somebody, and the guy does this with his rearview mirror.
Oh, they're following us.
It's like, how come the only time you ever adjust your rearview mirror is when you're being followed in a car chase type scene? Like, where was it? What was it pointing at before that now you're adjusting it to be directly behind you? Like, that's where it should have been pointed to begin with.
It's been watching there the whole time. Yeah, but so
Why do you have to? This is like the international sign for I'm being followed. Is adjusting
they're
your rearview.
signaling to you as the viewer that so now this character is thinking that he's being followed.
Yes.
So he has to adjust it so you know.
And I don't like it.
Will you ever see?
I don't like being hit over the head like I'm stupid.
But would you have known if he didn't touch it?
I think if he were driving and he does this.
That would work too?
Yeah, just give me 2 glances. Hang on. That's it.
Double take.
Solid.
Got it.
Yeah, solid.
Double take. Yeah, all right, fair enough.
I'll work on it. It wasn't my best.
But you're right. Sometimes when a show assumes that you're too dumb to pick up on the nuance,
Yeah.
it is kind of a
Right.
punch in the arm.
Yeah, I feel like I'm watching the wrong show. If you gotta call all that stuff out to me.
So that show's on Showtime, right?
Yes.
So they don't have commercials, right?
Correct.
So have you ever watched a show and been like, I don't know if I like this show on regular TV, and then they go to the commercials and you're like, okay, this isn't for me.
I definitely don't like it. Yes. Yeah, I that's funny you say that. I hadn't thought about it like that, but I definitely don't give as much credit to network television shows as I do to the movie channel shows. No, they're not really movie channels.
They've just gone way
Yeah.
above and beyond.
Yeah.
But AMC comes out with some pretty good stuff.
Yeah, they do. Breaking Bad was great.
Breaking Bad was killer. Mad Men was great.
Walking Dead, although I don't love Walking Dead, but people love it.
I forgot about that one. There was a show called Hell on Wheels on AMC.
Yeah, I watched.
Was really good.
That was the one Western.
Yeah, on the train track.
I watched a little bit of that.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything that's grinding my gears.
It's okay to be having a great week.
Do you have any more?
No, I think I talked about all my other ones.
Okay, something's got to be upsetting me. Oh, I had another horrible travel story.
I had a terrible one. Yeah, a couple weeks
Does
ago.
it come from
2 weeks in a row.
coming from Northeast?
Yeah, Detroit.
Okay, so I was in Philadelphia on Friday, and they're like, all right, so, first kick is that I was supposed to leave at 11 o'clock, but my manager said, you need to stay till the end of the training, just change your flight. So it goes to 6:50. I'm like, fair enough. And it was going to be a direct flight, but now I had to connect in Dallas. So I'm in Philadelphia, and they're like, okay, so the flight's now leaving at 7:50. And I'm like, whoa. I haven't got to the airport yet. You know how this story ends.
Yeah.
7:50.
They're
8,
already pushing it back.
9,
Right.
10, 11, 12. And they won't let you rebook your flight until the flight is officially canceled. So they keep us there till 12:55. And the line, it's American, by the way.
Yeah, I could have told you that.
75 yards long.
Yeah.
And when people finally get to the front of a line that's 75 yards long,
They're pissed.
they're mad.
Yeah.
And so the people are hollering, and I'm like, it's not going to work. They're going to close. So I go call the hotel booking service, and they're like, you can stay at the Holiday Inn in King of Prussia.
I know where that is.
Well, so I didn't know where that was. So I thought this was someone joking with me. This is a comedy city.
No, that's a giant mall in King of Prussia.
So I heard
the
about
second
this.
biggest mall in America.
I heard about this after the fact. And so I'm like, wait, that's not a real place.
Yeah.
That I was calling the comedy line or the joke network or something. But I get in the cab. It's 45 minutes away from the airport.
Yeah.
I get there at 2, 3, and then I got a flight that connects in the morning. I get back at 7 p.m. on the Saturday. And it all could have been avoided if I just could have got out on that 10:50.
Or flown a different airline.
or not gone to Philadelphia.
I don't think American Airlines is going to be one of your sponsors. You're not going to have American Airlines quarters on your
I don't
desk
like the
anytime
ding
soon.
companies though, because they aren't trying to make it hard.
No, and I feel bad for the people up front that have 75 yards of people that are pissed off. Like every conversation they have is somebody who's missing their kids' dinner or has been on the road all week. Like those people have a right to be pissed, and these people have a right to be a little bit crabby. It's just all around just a crabby
Not a good
mess.
show.
No, it's not good.
Yeah, there was. There was. Philadelphia is like an international connecting spot too.
Yeah.
So like a lot of people are getting up to the front of the desk and they don't speak great English, and the people are like, it's just not a good scene.
Now, I know we're not dinging the company, but here's where I think American fails time and time again, because everybody has mechanical issues, everybody has delays, everybody has canceled flights. I think American just won't rip the Band-Aid off when they know there's a problem. Like, just tell me.
Cancel it.
Yeah, just cancel this so that I can make other arrangements. It's delayed until it's like, oh, well, there's no possible way that it could get out today, so it's canceled. And then you're like, Jesus, man, I've been sitting here in Philadelphia airport
for a month.
Yeah, exactly.
Brutal.
Like, just pull the Band-Aid off. Okay, cool. This was fun. Was this good?
This was fantastic.
Did you like
man.
having the tables turned on you?
Yeah, I like this side of the table much more. I get to